Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our episode of Gargoyles Reawakening.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Lisa, also known as Talia Levid, and I am joined by the lovely Karel, also known as Kodalea.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. We have missed you greatly. We hope you feel the same. Um,
we do, definitely we do.
We want to give a shout out to some of our supporters. We saw a lovely post by Mara Cordova talking about how she really missed the podcast and she was re-listening to her episode. And then
Mara, we love you.
yes, we love you so much. You are the sweetest. And then we also saw that Greg and Jen were listening to their podcast too. And so it's just so wonderful to see that encouragement from everybody.
Yeah, despite the fact that we were there for like 1 year.
Right? It has been. It really has been. Ugh, shame on us.
Yeah.
Uh, but we did take a little bit of a hiatus because we just needed to go back to square one, and we wanted to sit down and think about, why we're doing this podcast, what's important, and we want to be able to share that with you. So going forward, Karel and I are going to do a monthly podcast. We are not going to take any exceptions, and hopefully you will join us each time.
Yeah, we count on you.
So let's see. There's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. One of the first things I definitely want to mention is back in December, of course, we saw a lot of the Twitter going on. We want to get those Gargoyles comics out. If you're not familiar with this, go on any of the Gargoyles groups on Facebook, of ours, of course, Gargoyles Reawakening, make a real Gargoyles movie. And you're going to see these posts that were shared by Greg Boskansky. And it's by Greg Weisman. We want to bring our Gargoyles back. We want to get those comics out there. The official hashtag, if you're a Twitter fan, is #WeLiveAgain. All together, no spaces. Go out there and show your support because we want these to get published. I don't want to talk too much about it just because I feel like everyone's pretty familiar with it, but I definitely want to get that out there on the airwaves. This is something we've waited for, guys. We want these comics to continue. The last time the comics ended, we were at that crucial cliffhanger. Brooklyn had just returned with his mate Katana, his son Nashville, and the famous Eduardo. So it would pick up from there. Greg has a multitude of stories in that genius mind of his. So let's get that support. Let's get that out there. We want these published. And again, if you go on any Gargoyles fan Twitter page, you're going to see it. But go on Greg Weisman's as well, and you'll see the #WeLiveAgain.
And for artists, you can still do art, and writers, you can still do fan fiction. And just put it there and bring some highlights on the hashtag. That would be nice. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's a great idea. Anytime you publish something, put that hashtag out there. Because as we've seen, online can be a powerful force, whether it's good or bad. And this is something good. Let's do it.
Yep.
So yeah, anything that you publish, make sure to share it on your Twitter page and put the link, and then make sure to put #WeLiveAgain.
Instagram and Twitter and every social networks.
Absolutely. And if you share it with us, we'll of course share it too on our Facebook and our Twitter, our Tumblr, which I think I need to check. It's been a while. But yeah, let's get that out there.
And there's still from time to time a little article or something that pops up about a possible adaptation of Gargoyles on theater, in a movie. And we know that more and more people think about Gargoyles and think that it would be a great thing to see on screens. And there was another one like a few weeks ago, and it reminded me about the April Fool pranks that we had a few years ago, but we still don't know if it's still in the tubes or not, about the Gargoyles adaptation with Disney. So
No, that's the other point I was going to bring up, so thank you for that. You know, there's always going to be the debate about whether we want a live action movie, what the quality will be, who would be behind the scenes with it. But I agree with some of the most recent posts that no matter what, even if it's good, even if it's a terrible movie and you want to throw your popcorn at the screen, it at least gets Gargoyles out there for that audience. It gives us that open door for more marketing, for more products, for more screen time. It's going to, in the end, result in something better. So even if the movie isn't something that necessarily we support as the fandom, we should still support it. You know what I mean? It may not be something where it's like, oh, this was the best movie I ever saw. Now, granted, I'm hoping it is. I have very high standards. But even if it's not, let's support something. Let's try to bring Gargoyles back. Let's make this our year for Gargoyles to return. I really appreciate how this fandom has that power to reach out to resources and to make their voices heard. And I feel that they do it in a very eloquent manner for the most part. So let's keep that going. Our voices can be heard.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, don't support the April Fool's thing. Sadly, it's still an April Fool's joke from years ago. In other news, we do want to talk about a fan who's really been working to do her part to support the fandom in a different way. We're talking about Lena Shemplin, and I hope I'm saying her last name right. If I'm not, I'm so sorry. But she has been doing some research on the website VLN Research, and we'll have these websites shared on our sites as well. But what she's been doing is she has been taking each of the episodes of Gargoyles, and she does a great summary. She includes a lot of, facts, and then she talks about the villains. So it's a different spin. Generally we hear about the summary of the episode, or you see the focus on a certain character, or why that character affected you. But what this does is it ties everything together and then specifically focuses on some of the villains. I'm looking at her Temptation episode right now just because that ties into what we'll talk about later. But right now, of course, she focuses on Demona and her effect on Brooklyn. And they're very interesting reads. It definitely won't take you a long time to read it. She includes some great pointers. She includes quotes,
pictures, yeah.
Lots of images from the show. And she's also very snappy, and I don't want to say snarky because that always has a negative connotation, but she's got some cute snark in here, and I really enjoy reading what she has to say. So hopefully you'll check her out too. Again, we'll have her links on our site. All right. Well, if you have nothing else, Carell, I think we're ready to move on to our roar.
Let's go.
Let's go. I do like that sound bit. I really do.
Me too.
Okay, so welcome to our roar, everybody. Today we'll be talking about Temptation. If you remember from our previous podcast, we decided that we're going to start throwing in some trivia. Now, the prizes are just a pat on the back and superior knowledge that you knew your fandom. But we think it's a fun way to get connected. And what we do is we ask a trivia question. Feel free to, either take notes by yourself or research it, and then you can put it in the comments below. And we reveal the answers at the end of the podcast. All right, so this time we have a two-parter. In the episode of Temptation, we actually meet Officer Morgan's partner. And what we want to know, first off, what is his name, the partner's name for Officer Morgan, and when do they finally reveal his name?
That's a tricky question.
So again, what is the name of Officer Morgan's partner, and when do they finally reveal what his name is? Good luck, everybody.
See you at the end of the podcast.
See you at the end of the podcast. All right. Well, are you ready to jump into Temptation, Carell?
Oh, I am.
Me too.
Definitely.
This is a very dear episode to me, to be honest.
It's one of my favorite too.
Mine too, mine too. And truthfully, I think it's really a lot of people's favorite. I always joke that this is the episode that launched 1,000 Brooklyn fans. Because to me, this is where I mean, of course, you've seen him in Awakening. You saw him very briefly in Thrill of the Hunt. But this is where he is actually in the spotlight, and you begin to see some of those characteristics that they develop as the show goes on. But we'll do a little bit of a summary to start with.
So just to put it back into the season, we are talking about Temptation, which is the 7th episode of season 1, and it's so as you said, Lisa, it's a special episode focusing on Brooklyn, and I think that Greg Weisman said that after the opening and when we see all the characters, they have like three episodes focusing on each one of the trio. So one on Lexington, one of Brooklyn, and one on Broadway, right?
Yep, absolutely. And then I always feel Hudson gets his later. But yep, you're absolutely right. They did do one episode each focusing on the trio. So we had Lexington's in Thrill of the Hunt, and we have Brooklyn's on Temptation, and then Broadway's will come up, which we'll talk about later. So to begin, our story opens very innocently. The trio are in a abandoned warehouse where Lexington is working on a customized motorcycle for his brothers. Presumably, they're all going to take turns on it, to help them fit in with their new world. And I was mentioning with Carell earlier how much I really enjoy the banter between the three of them. It always has that definite sibling feel to it, where even though they're just picking on each other, there's always that camaraderie and there's always that love behind the words. And I've always appreciated that in every single episode, but this one especially, they're giving Lexington a hard time. It's been a week. Why doesn't he have this motorcycle built? And keep in mind, a couple weeks ago, they were in stone slumber for 1,000 years. So how would he even know how to build a motorcycle? I think they should be singing his praises. But
Yeah.
Lexington just doesn't even miss a beat. He just fires back. And this is one of my favorite lines. I feel that there needs to be thousands of fan fictions about this. But Lexington looks up at Brooklyn and says, "You rode a horse once. Could you build one from spare parts?" And I love it. I love how he's not even upset by this. He's just like, "Let me do my thing. Go away." So they prepare for their ride.
To be honest, I wonder where he had the plans for the motorcycle. Like it's a peculiar shape, and I know that they did the motorcycle so they can have a toy from this motorcycle to send some toys. But well, with the shape and everything, it's a very special motorcycle. It's not a Harley Davidson, or it's not I don't know,
Right.
a
Yeah.
common motorcycle.
Yep,
You see?
absolutely. Like it's definitely not
It's like
any
a Mad
brand
Max
new
motorcycle, actually.
Maybe they saw a movie.
Yeah, maybe so.
But
Mad
no, I
Max.
always wondered that too. Did he just remember the shape of this? Did he just know he needed these parts? Did he research it? I've always wondered that too, to be honest with you.
And how long have they been there to know how it is and what it is and how it is composed of? Well, I don't know.
Right. I mean, after he unfortunately crashed the motorcycle in Awakening, did he go home and just instantly research it? I mean, I don't know. Did the idea come to them later? Hey, you wrote this. Let's build one.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the idea came from. I don't know where the plans that Lexington had in his head. Maybe they had visited a few motorcycle shops.
Maybe
I don't know.
It's a motorcycle that Brooklyn asked Lexington to build. Maybe
Could be. Maybe Brooklyn came up with the design of it and Lexington found the parts. That's actually a great suggestion too. But yeah, you're right. In the end, I know it's because they want to build a toy out of it, which by the way is actually a pretty fun toy. Um, it has no purpose. It really has no purpose, but it's really fun. And I even let my son play with mine, and he just has a blast with it. So mission accomplished, Kenner. You came up with a toy that that carried on. That's another thing. I could talk about the toys forever too. Um, But while they wait for Lexington to finish, Brooklyn gets ready. And this is another significant portion I just want to mention. It's so brief, but this is one of the very few times, other than Halloween, you ever see them wearing clothing. Brooklyn actually puts on a helmet. He punches holes to adjust for his horns. He puts his wings around the body, which I don't know if anyone else thought this. I always thought he did it first off, of course, to make room for the jacket, but second off, the way he lays his wings over his legs when he sits, I thought he was trying to simulate leather pants.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else took that away.
Me too.
Okay, good.
Too.
Good. I always thought that. I always thought he looked like he was trying to wear leather pants under his jacket. So good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah,
And then he does wear the leather jacket. In addition, he puts on the famous sunglasses, and as soon as Lexington tells him the bike is ready, Brooklyn is ready to go. He hops on the bike, speeds away, and leaves his brothers wondering if he'll come back.
Or right to the sunset.
Exactly.
Not to the sunset, but to the sunrise.
Into the full moon, yeah. Brooklyn is definitely enjoying his ride around the city. So Brooklyn is enjoying his ride through the city, totally oblivious to the fact that he's being followed by a shadowy figure. And what he's doing, I mean, I don't know. I just love how they capture the joy of him. You don't really see his face, but of course you hear the performance by Jeff Bennett as his voice actor. And, you just feel that sense of freedom that he must be feeling at this moment. He's obviously going too fast because that's where Officer Morgan and his partner come in. Brooklyn zooms right past them, and right away the two officers pursue him. They turn on their lights, they turn on their spotlight. Brooklyn drives into an alley, and he spreads his wings and glides over a fence. The two officers stop and decide that they've just had too much sugar for the night. They're not going to call it in, and they go back on patrol. At this point, Brooklyn takes a moment to relax, and what he does is instead he looks out into the street, and sure enough, there is a gang of fellow bikers. He decides he's going to make some friends with some kindred spirits and drives over to them, shows off his bike, everything's going smooth until he pulls off his helmet, and that's where it goes downhill.
I always wondered how they could not see his beak. And his red skin.
And his red skin.
Oh, it's okay, but the horns are right.
I always thought maybe they just assumed it was a custom helmet to go with the custom motorcycle. I don't know how they never noticed the beak. The red skin, I think, could be maybe with the street lights you can't see as well. I don't know. But you're right. I always wondered about the beak. They had to have noticed that. Especially because you can see his nose. I don't know. But yep, he lifts off his helmet, and that's where it's revealed that he's not human. The bikers react accordingly. They consider him a threat. They pull out a gun, and they're going to shoot Brooklyn. Actually, I want to...
No, they don't have guns. They have, like, keys and stuff and their own fist, but they don't have guns.
They don't until the very end. What happened? Yeah, until the very end of the fight. No, you're right. And that I was just about to say that too. I was like, I want to back up a minute.
I remember because it made me laugh actually when the big guy is holding up, the key, I don't remember the name. The key to for the motorcycle.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, it's a spanner on Monkey Ranch.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of them has a wrench. I think one of them has like a
Wrench.
chain. Yeah.
And it is like so an old school weapon or something. It's just,
Old
you know,
school 90s violence, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, they dogpile him is really what they do.
Mhm.
They all jump on top of him. They're attacking him, and Brooklyn throws them all off, and he stands up. And I swear this is where everybody, started fanning over Brooklyn. He's standing up in that ripped up leather jacket, and he's looking very heroic and almost like that gothic romantic look.
Mhm.
And the fight continues. Brooklyn's doing very well for himself. And then the leader of the bike gang pulls out a gun.
Mhm.
The others back away. I think Brooklyn suddenly has this sense that he may not defeat this. They're not bullet means. Um, and then our mysterious figure swoops in, slaps the man's hand with the tail, and the gun or the bullet misses. The bullet hits the bike instead, which explodes. Now Brooklyn's incredibly angry
And
because that
it's
was
funny,
his bike.
it's funny
Yeah.
because actually the deathly weapon is pulled out with Demon, actually, with the shadowy figure, and not Brooklyn. It's like it's a grown up thing.
Mhm.
You think?
Yeah. Yeah. Like the kids were playing around until until the adults showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, it really does. It escalates. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes more along the lines of like a playground fight, and I'm not undermining what was happening, but it's like the playground fight until the leaders between the two showed up or took control of it.
Yeah, when it begins
Yeah.
to serious.
No, you're absolutely right. Um,
I misused the word. It was not begin, but it becomes serious.
yes, yeah, you're right. So anyway, our two gargoyles escape. Brooklyn follows the shadowy figure, assuming that it's one of his rookery brothers. He's very taken back when Demona reveals herself.
When we thought that she was dead from her falling from the
From
castle, right?
Castle Wyvern.
It's the first time that we see her after this.
Yes. Yep, this is the first time we see her since Awakening. Until that point, we had thought she was dead. Um, we thought Goliath had chosen to save Elisa and Demona had perished. So it's really a surprise to everybody. I mean, you can tell from the figure too who it might be, but it really brings this world of intrigue. How did she survive?
Mm.
And Demona tries to calm Brooklyn by saying she just wants to talk, presumably maybe explain how she survived. But she really only gives the answer of that she always survives. So it still leaves that air of mystery. Brooklyn's very confused. He's even more confused when Demona shares a bit more about her story, that she's been dealing with the humans for thousands of years,
Mhm.
and she's just crazed with rage and fear. Um, so we start to build more of Demona's character within this interaction as well.
Something that she's not telling us. Yes.
Yep, absolutely. You feel that air of mystery, that clandestine. She's definitely not going to reveal all of her cards yet.
Mhm.
So she and Brooklyn talk. He's very reluctant at first, but he does sit down and listen to her.
And it was a funny thing because it was. I even feel like she was kind of honest with a strange feeling, but there was something that she was saying that felt like honesty or like she was.
Yeah, I agree with you. I
Mm.
I always felt like she was actually being vulnerable for a moment.
Yeah, genuine or very vulnerable. Yeah.
Right, right. She's
Mhm.
such a master at manipulating people, but I felt maybe in this moment,
She
she was
was.
being honest. I
Mhm.
mean, aside from her hatred with Goliath, she doesn't necessarily have an issue with the rest of the clan yet. Yep. And so maybe she genuinely thought Brooklyn would come to her side.
Mhm.
But you're right. I always felt like in that moment when she's talking to him, even though she's very careful about what she reveals, she's very careful about how much she reveals.
Yeah.
I did feel like she was being honest. I won't say that in many later episodes. I'll be like, oh, she's manipulated. But I'll also get to a little tidbit later on, which is going to be more of speculation because it has yet to be revealed. But yeah, I agree with you there. I do feel like she was being honest in that moment.
Kind of. Part of.
Yeah. As honest as she gets.
As honest as she can be.
Oh, Marina Sirtis, why are you so great at being Demona? But anyway, the two of them fly off into the evening, and we have our first little commercial break. When we come back, this is where Demona has definitely set up her manipulation. She takes Brooklyn to different scenes throughout the city. The first one is where they can see a woman being mugged. Brooklyn is about to pursue, but Demona pulls him back, explaining that human justice won't serve the punishment. And so I've never understood why Brooklyn still hesitated. I don't know if he was just so confused still, but later on, I always picture him as being the person who it doesn't matter. He would still go in and make that decision to help the person. But yeah, he hesitates. He listens to her. The next location that she brings him is actually a domestic dispute. They peer in the window as the husband and wife are fighting over their son, and other things. And then we see the son run out of the house crying. And the third one is it's a chalk outline of a body drawn on the street. And you see the evidence bag, you see the corpse being loaded into the ambulance. And my 12-year-old self at this moment was like, holy, they are showing a dead body without actually showing a dead body. But it wasn't anything that you knew that that's what happened. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything that I felt needed to be censored. It actually struck a chord about she's really finding the worst of the worst. And so that was just very poignant in that moment. Even Brooklyn feels helpless. And I think that spoke on so many volumes. Brooklyn is still trying at this point to defend humanity. He points out that Elisa has befriended the clan, that she's still this light of goodness that the world needs. And here's where some more manipulation comes in. Demona agrees that Elisa might be that exception. But then she points out that even Elisa can't protect the clan from all of humanity. And so she, at this point, starts to launch her plan. So Demona launches her plan. She tells Brooklyn to bring her the Grimorum Arcanorum so she can cast the spell of truth on her. And Brooklyn, you can still see the reluctance. You can see that he doesn't necessarily want to help. But then he hears the ambulance pull away and he looks over his shoulder and he agrees.
He's definitely not willing to help her, but he feels like he can't do anything. But he's not really eager to, but he feels like he has to.
Right. And I think a lot of people can relate. At the time that this show was airing, a lot of us were teenagers, or preteen, and we can feel that peer pressure. You want to do the right thing. You want to still help your family. You just want to find your place. And I think was really struggling, from the moment that they woke up. And so, he wants his clan to be safe. He doesn't want to trust Demona, but what she just showed him blew his mind. And he feels he really needs to do this thing to help his clan. So I think that's another reason that a lot of fans latched onto Brooklyn starting in this episode. I don't know, is they can really relate to his need to belong. But Brooklyn returns to the castle. The next night, he wakes up, tells his brother he's not interested in breakfast. and he slips into the castle and steals the Grimorum. He meets Demona at their location, which happens to be the cloisters, which could not have been a perfect setting for this. And she tells him he says he'll go to find Goliath. She tells him not to hurry. The spell that she needs to study is complex. So Brooklyn returns to the castle, finds Goliath thinking up in his perch, and talks to Goliath about the cloisters and how it's like the world they came from. And it is. I mean, it's this beautiful medieval inspired location. Yeah. Architecture, absolutely. So the two of them glide off. They go to the cloisters. Goliath clearly appreciates where he's been brought until Demona steps out of the shadows. Brooklyn goes to her side, and Goliath realizes he's been betrayed.
It's funny that they choose the cloister to do this because traditionally, well, the cloister is a peaceful location. It's it's like to have the peace of mind and everything. So
right.
It's where Demona is getting tough and very dangerous, and it's totally in I can't find my words.
But I know what you're saying. You know, it's almost like the cloisters is traditionally like a place of sanctuary. You know, you go there to clear your mind and to take in beauty and peace. And you're right. She's going to launch her attack in this beautiful place.
She's to attack in this very, very place, and it shows that she's not respecting anything.
Right. But Goliath stands there stunned. He asks Brooklyn what's happening, and Brooklyn begs him to listen to Demona. Demona recites her spell, and this green fireball shoots from her hand. It hits Goliath. Goliath roars in pain, and then he stands up. When he does, his eyes are this strange green. Now Brooklyn is worried. He's realizing
that something's wrong.
Yeah, he's realizing he should have listened to that little voice that told him no. Demona tries to assure him that everything is fine, and she approaches Goliath, tells him that humans are our enemies, and Goliath repeats the phrase. Brooklyn is absolutely horrified. Instead of clearing or freeing Goliath's mind, she's actually enslaved him. At this point, he does fight back. He tries to grab the Grimorum from her. She has control of Goliath. She commands Goliath to stop him, and he obeys. Demona is able to escape in this moment. Luckily, Brooklyn escapes from Goliath, tries to reason with him, but there's nothing. There's nothing he can do. So Brooklyn pursues Demona. He breaks down a door to escape and hides from Demona and Goliath. While he's hiding, Demona, I don't know if she just doesn't feel like looking for him necessarily, or if she's gotten what she wants. I think she's more concerned about Brooklyn not escaping as opposed to necessarily stopping him. But instead, she tries to reason with him, telling him that she just wanted to show Goliath the truth about humanity. Brooklyn...
the truth on him.
Right. Brooklyn remains in hiding, and then he sees a chance where he can approach Goliath. So he tries again to beseech his leader, telling him to snap out of it, telling him to break free of it. And Goliath just throws Brooklyn to the side. Demona instead approaches Brooklyn, decides to try the same spell on Brooklyn. What he does is brilliant. He knocks the Grimorum out of her hands. The two of them fight. Brooklyn tries to retrieve the book, but she's able to grab it again, throws him aside, and she instead commands Goliath to finish him off. But Goliath doesn't move. Demona is surprised, and Brooklyn shows that he has torn the page out of the book. And so now he has control of Goliath. The next few minutes of the show is, I'm not one to promote fight scenes. I'm never going to say that. But it is such a great choreography with the animators. They have this battle scene between Goliath and Demona. You really see how strong Demona is. I mean, she's able to pick up this gigantic boulder and just hurl it at Goliath.
She's able to pull Brooklyn off the ground and just throw him away. So she's very,
Right.
very,
Yeah, very, very strong.
yeah.
So the battle continues. Brooklyn does eventually catch up. While they're battling, Demona flies away. She tears some pages from the Grimorum, and Goliath dives down to catch her. She strikes him with the book. You know, again, this is where the battle scene is still continuing. And I think she finally realizes she's outnumbered. So what she does is she throws the book toward the water. So Brooklyn has to choose again. Does he let Demona escape, or does he
lose the Grimorum?
lose the Grimorum? And lose the Grimorum, or does he save the Grimorum and in turn hopefully save Goliath? This time Brooklyn makes the right choice. He manages to catch the book just before it falls into the water. Demona escapes and Brooklyn leads Goliath home. So right before sunset, you know, Brooklyn is so apologetic. He realizes that he can't trust Demona.
Oh, he screwed up big time.
Yeah, oh, definitely. He definitely screwed up. And so he apologizes to Goliath, and it's so heartfelt. So he doesn't know what to do to reverse the spell. None of them know how to reverse the spell. But then Elisa has an idea. Maybe they can use the spell that Brooklyn still has to break it. So she takes the page from the spell, she takes the page and orders Goliath to act for the rest of his life as if he were not under a spell. And the spell is broken. Goliath returns to normal, and Brooklyn again apologizes, but Goliath is such a sound leader. I could talk about him for years. But he tells Brooklyn that Brooklyn's apologized already. Yeah, he's not mad about it. And so, you know, they learn their valuable lesson. It doesn't strike you over the head. You know, it's just very realistic in how Goliath and Brooklyn interact in this moment. And so they prepare for sleep. You know, all is well. And then we have a little bit of comedy at the end. Lexington asks Brooklyn what happens to the bike. Brooklyn admits that it blew up, and Lexington's frozen face is priceless as the sun rises. So there you have the summary of Temptation. I do want to talk about, you know, just the voice acting and the animation in this episode. As with Awakening, as with Thrill of the Hunt, you know, the animation is just spectacular. Everything is where it should be within New York. The coloring, the lighting, you know, on an artist scale. I hope you agree with me, Carell, because I of course am beyond an amateur in knowing these things. But everything.
But you can feel it even if you're not you're not like artist or anything. You can feel it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you know, just the interactions and the choreography within the episode, you know, everything is so believable. It gives it that realistic feel, which the show never lost. It never lost that realistic feeling to it. And then the voice acting, you know, these characters, they are so amazing in themselves, and what makes them even more so is the voice acting behind them. You know, you feel every emotion, you feel every change of their,
every question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really applaud them, especially in this episode. But yeah, I could just talk about this episode forever. It's hard to know where to start and where to end.
And I like the fact that it's Elisa at the end who finds the way to overpass the spell, because in one way, Demona is using her wits just to do evil things, and Elisa is totally the opposite, and she uses her wits to do the good things. And I like the fact that they are like two pieces, or just a mirror thing. The two girls in the episode are just a mirror and the two faces of the same coin. You see?
Of the same coin. Yep, they're the ultimate good versus evil. But no, you're absolutely right. They're the ultimate good versus evil. You know, they really are the opposite of each other. They're polar opposites of each other. And I really like how in the end Elisa proves the point that Brooklyn was making to Demona, that, with all the evil in the world, there are humans like Elisa, and those people will find them, or they'll be able to find those people, and they'll have those allies.
Before she threw the book into the water, she pulled off some paper, and it was the antidote of the spell, right?
Supposedly one was the antidote of the spell. In the continuity of the Gargoyles fandom, she uses 3 of those spells. But there's always one that's unremained, or that she never uses, unused. So I always wonder if it actually was the antidote, or maybe there never was an antidote. Because only she knows. Yeah, only she knows, because she actually has that final page, and maybe it's meant to be used at a later time, or maybe she'll never use it.
Who knows?
The other thing I always thought was interesting is how long she claimed she needed with the book to study the spell, and it was just a very short spell. So there's always speculation, was it something complex? The realm of gargoyles always talks about how you have to be an experienced sorcerer to use magic. The average Joe just can't pick up a spell, recite it, and hope that everything is, or know that everything is going to go according to plan. You have to have that knowledge. So I always wondered, was it like something with, and I read this on the Garg Wiki too. I'm not going to pretend it was just me, but was it something in the gestures? Did she really have to make sure that she said it just right? Or what I always speculated was, I think she was reading the Grimorum to find those other spells. I don't know.
She was preparing another thing.
Right. She had another agenda, and I wonder if she was going to use those spells for those agendas. Again, if we get
the City of Stone, for instance.
Yep, absolutely. It says that she used the 3 spells on Garg Wiki. She used them in Reawakening for Coldstone. She used one in the mirror to summon Puck. And then the last one was the City of Stone. And then the final page is still unused. So yeah, if we get our comics, #We Live Again, maybe we'll find out what that spell is for.
Maybe it's something we could ask Greg Wiseman.
I would love to. Although I have a feeling we would get the infamous spoiler alert, no comment.
No comment.
All right, so that wraps up Temptation. We really hope you enjoyed listening to our comments and our summary. Please feel free to contact us on any of our numerous media pages. But before we go, we naturally want to reveal the answers to our trivia. So Morgan's partner's name is Phil Travanti. He first appears in Temptation, but he does not receive his official name until the comic episode of Invitation Only. So he has a long way to go before we actually meet him and associate him with that name. So for those of you who knew that, awesome. Congratulations. And
congratulations, guys.
Learn something new. Congratulations to you as well. Every day should be a learning day. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. We are so glad that you invited us into your living rooms or into your cars or wherever you listen to our podcast. We will be back with you next month.
Yeah. Definitely. So see you next time.
Have a great time. Absolutely.